Yo, what is up, y'all? My name is Robert Donaldson, and welcome back to another Iowa football breakdown video. And it's been a while since we put out one of these, and we've got a very good reason as to why we're putting out another one right now. And Hawkeye fans, you guys have been calling for a quarterback for, quite some time. And it's been quite some time since that position has truly felt solidified. And there's been a lot of flashes in the pan over the past 5 years. There's also been a lot of names that have taken snaps under center for Iowa over those past 5 years. And now there's just one name that you need to care about, and that's Mark Gronowski. So let's talk about Mr. Gronowski. And if I were to label his overall skill set, it's a plus athlete and a functional passer. And in framing it that way, it's easy to think of a Lamar Jackson, Kevin Jennings, or like the Sam Levitt type. You know, stringy, quick, and opening passing lanes at times solely because, they're elusive, they're dynamic, they're quick on their feet. However, with Gronowski, it's actually one cut speed, and once he makes that one cut, it's pure downhill bully ball physicality, and he's utilizing every ounce of that 6'3", 230-pound frame. And when you really watch this guy play, he looks like a linebacker, to be honest with you. And for that reason, it's not really fair to throw him in that category of the Lamars or the Kevin Jennings. And rather, I kind of feel like he's carved out that role or that mold of the Anthony Richardson types or the Sam Ehlinger. And my personal favorite that kind of falls in that category, I'm going to say Diego Pavia, as a guy who maybe can't do it all from all parts of the field, like running around like Johnny Manziel and breaking ankles on the way to the end zone, but he can do a lot, especially in terms of the red zone, where the threat of floating in a pass or bulldozing through a linebacker who, because of that dual threat ability, has to kind of play on their heels a little bit, it's never not on the table down in that area. And in today's football climate, and with Iowa's relative kind of inability to recruit overly dynamic receivers who rack up just a bunch of yards after catch, I'm fully willing to sacrifice some of that refinement as a passer for athleticism, for that improvisational ability. And we saw why this past season at a school like a Vanderbilt that has long since been irrelevant, going all the way back to the James Franklin days. And they added Diego Pavia. It's a 1-year turnaround. They're beating Alabama at home as a 20-plus point dog. And again, I think Diego Pavia and Mark Gronowski are carved out of that same kind of mold. Now, it needs to be said, when you watch Gronowski play, it does not matter which game you're flipping on. You're going to see some really visceral shots being taken all over his film. I mean, just watch the screen right now. It's going to be hit after hit, and a lot of these are going to be from the same game, but these games stack up, and hey, props to his toughness, right? I mean, regardless of whether or not these are FCS players as opposed to FBS players, they're still kind of in the same body type molds, moving at the same speed, and the effects on your body over time are going to be damn near identical. And Gronowski just kept on chugging along, game after game, hit after hit, and that's really, inspiring to see, especially if, your team needs to be galvanized in a big-time moment. Now, the question becomes, can this hold up over the course of an entire Big Ten season? And I just highly doubt it, especially at the rate that we're, seeing in this video. And this is all from 2024 for the most part, and just some hand-picked games from 2024. I could have just picked one game and it would have made a 5-minute compilation. But when you are kind of looking at it from that standpoint, that does mean that Iowa probably needs to have someone very capable waiting in the wings, because that lack of capability in the backup role has killed Iowa in spots over the past few seasons. And, ideally, the physical running does get dialed back a little bit from Gronowski, but when you are 6'3", 230 pounds, and you're built like a linebacker, you can feel invincible until you're not, and that is a little bit of a concern here on my end. Now, I've mentioned a couple times functional passer needing refinement, and I would say those are very accurate statements as it pertains to his pure passer ability. And in particular, through a number of different games, Gronowski has struggled with throws to the left side of the field, and it's not overly uncommon for a right-handed passer to struggle throwing to their non-dominant side, but when it's noticeable, and objectively, he's also looked slower on getting the ball out when it comes to throws to that side of the field. And I mean, the play you're seeing on your screen right now is one of the definite examples of the window is there and the ball isn't out. It should be, and instead, we're holding onto the ball a little bit longer, we're going through different progressions, and we opted out, essentially out of a 10-yard potential first down, and now we're looking at a 1-yard gain that really doesn't do anything for us. And, also, you're kind of bringing on a sack if you're playing a team like an Ohio State or a Penn State or an Oregon, the way that, Iowa potentially will next season. And one of the games from this past season that I felt left the most questions for me on the tail end was early on in the year against FBS competition, in this case, Power 4 competition, in a game against Oklahoma State in Stillwater. And although the issues with throwing to his left were still prevalent in this game, he was also double clutching the ball quite a bit, and it led to a major turnover early, and it led to what should have been a few major turnovers late in the game as well. Now, the leg up that Iowa gives you in the offseason every single year, and I get it, we haven't really seen this come to fruition just yet, but their defense is legit, and those rhythm patterns and those potential timing issues can really get ironed out fast, and it'll need to be cut down on those potential turnovers once Iowa plays up in competition. That being said, Gronowski does have a strong arm, and when it comes to throws over the middle, whether it's in the intermediate or down the field, and in particular, throwing to his right, whether he's set in the pocket or if he's rolling out, I think those are the areas where he really does excel and really flourishes. And when you have a guy who can wing the ball from the far hash like you're seeing on this play and just drop a dime, I'm really excited to see what Tim Lester can draw up over the course of an entire offseason. And I think ultimately that's where us as Iowa fans can really feel good about this addition, because we're bringing in a guy who not only has won national championships, regardless of the level, he's a national champion. And on top of that, the big reason why we fell in love with a CJ Beathard or a Drew Tate or a Ricky Stanzi is because they're out there willing to put their bodies on the line as if their careers and their seasons depended on it and make a play. And that's exactly what Mark Gronowski is going to be able to provide, but he's also going to be able to do that in a much more athletic and able-bodied frame as opposed to CJ Beathard, who was just kind of ragdolling sometimes out there and just taking these insane hits. And when you're also looking at Gronowski, one of the things that I will say is, although he does need a little bit of refinement as a passer, I would say, he's also a guy that if there's a play to be made in the passing game, usually he's going to be able to put it on the guy. And that's something that, as Iowa fans, over the past 5, and we can even go all the way back to CJ Beathard, there's a lot of balls that just kind of fall to the turf because a quarterback's trying to do too much or trying to lead him too far, and it just kind of feels like there was a lot of wasted potential on plays down the field. And with Gronowski, he has a fundamental understanding of, hey, I don't need to do too much, just give my guy a chance, and I'm going to let them try to make a play. And it's turned out really, really well for him. I'm excited to see what he does in this Iowa offense, and I think that's a good place to leave it. So with all that being said, y'all, I appreciate you guys tuning in this video. Go Hawks, and let's have a great 2025 season.